Good morning and welcome to the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting of March the 24th, 2016. We will call the meeting to order and begin with a couple of items that I called to the Advisory Board's attention on the agenda. Item 5 on the agenda is a resolution emanating from the Trail Subcommittee, and the staff and subcommittee have asked that that be stricken from today's agenda, as there is more work to do on that resolution that they're going to work through and bring it back to us next month. So you may, with your concurrence, we will strike item 5 from the agenda. On item 8, there is a citizen here, Mike Owen is here, who has asked for the opportunity to be heard at the time that agenda item will be considered by the advisory board rather than at the end of the agenda, and I think his reasons are good and that he should have a chance to speak ahead of our vote on that agenda item. So with your concurrence, we will allow that citizen's comments in connection with that agenda item. Are we agreed? All right. Then let's move then to item 2 on the agenda. You have been furnished with copies of the minutes of our February 25th meeting. Are there additions or corrections? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. David, we have the revenue and expenditure report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have revenue and expenditure report for the period ending February 29th, 2016. On the revenue side for the month, we have $9,631,655. For the fiscal year, we have $74,975,445. For total program revenue of $603,300,016. On the expenditure side for the month, we have $16,649,399. For the fiscal year, we have $56,523,417, and total expenditures on the program of $171,487,720. I usually try and hit high points on expenditures for the month. For the convention center, there's a lot of land that has been purchased. Fairgrounds has construction underway. Park also has land that is being purchased. And River has the Whitewater that is under construction. So those are the major items within that. Then you also have the budget and obligations report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, we're going to start by asking our accountant, resident accountant, Mike Adams. No, boy. That was a mistake, wasn't it, Mike Dover? Michael Adams?
Well, Tom, I guess the one thing I'd point out is, but I kind of keeping my eye on is the 5.4% over the overall target for the project. And even though we have some down months going on now, because of the good months we had early on in the project, we're still running over 5% on the overall plan. And 5% of a $777 million budget is $40 million or so. So potentially if that holds up, we'll have some money at the end over and above what's been budgeted to try to take care of some other issues and things.
Thank you, Michael Adams. All right. Any other questions or comments on either the revenue and expenditure report or the budget and obligations report?
I move we receive the report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we receive the reports as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That brings us to item 4, David.
Item 4 is a presentation on the MAPS 3 Convention Center. There's been a whole lot of work going on at the conceptual stage, and the subcommittee has seen the work that's been going on, but wanted to bring the presentation to this board so that you'll know what's going on and see the good work that's being done. We have Todd Voth here today from Populous and his team, and he's going to run you through that.
Thank you. Welcome, Todd.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board. Delighted to be here. We're very excited about this project, as you know, and I'm sure you are as well. We have a great site. I think you're all aware of our new site, and we've been developing our concept design for that site for a couple months now, and it's going quite well. And as Tom mentioned, we've made a number of presentations to bring people up to speed. And, of course, this session today is to do the same with you, and we certainly welcome any questions, comments that you would have as we make the presentation. So I'm going to ask Adam Pollich, who's our project designer, to come up and run through the presentation. He's going to make it fairly quick, and if you have questions, feel free to stop him. But we're delighted to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. It's good to see some of you again. So as Todd said, we're in a really great place with the Convention Center. We're about 2.5 months into conceptual design. And so, we're still showing some blocking and stacking and some relationships, but this is a pretty good idea of the direction of where the facility is going to head. So I'll just jump right in. Just to give a bit history, we've been working on this for about 2.5 months, like I said, and we came to the first subcommittee meeting with a few options, and back in Kansas City, we produced about 15 to 20 options, received some feedback, and narrowed it down to about 8 different options on how the building would fit on the site. We then took those 8 options and went to 3 options with some of the feedback that we received from various subcommittees and our MAPS team. And so now from those 3 options, we have one option, which what we're calling our conceptual development option, and this is the option that we're going to take through our conceptual report. So it's interesting, during this exercise, we've created this list of design principles, and what these design principles are kind of a checklist where if we're hitting all of these principles as we move through this process, we know that when the Convention Center is open here in a few years that we've created a successful project. I'll run through those really quickly. The first is a unique visitor experience. That's something that's special to Oklahoma City, something that's special to the industry, some unique space, a unique facility. The pedestrian district, there's a lot of exciting development happening down there south of the boulevard. Obviously, the park development is a huge part of our facility as well, and the streetcar expansion is another one that is going to be an integral part to our design. So that pedestrian district is going to be key as we move forward. Division of shows, it's more than just being able to divide the show. It's being able to never say no, sell the building in multiple ways. That's really important to the future operator and the people that are going to sell the facility. The ballroom, we call the ballroom the living room of the city because it needs to be the one space in the convention center that screams Oklahoma City, that is your most premier space, that is going to command that presence and that civic scale that you would expect in this kind of facility. Obviously, urban integration and park connections, I'll touch on that as I move through the presentation. And future expansion, we're delivering the full program right now as it's designed with the capability of expansion in the future. So just thinking about that as we move ahead, here in this design. And then obviously future development opportunities. We are tasked with just the convention center, but we're still very mindful about what else is happening within the district. So just being respectful to the adjacent developments and all the activity that's happening down there. So I'll jump right into some of the site stuff that we've been working on. The first thing is the relocation of Broadway to the east. We're going to be moving Broadway approximately 200 feet to the east to allow for the convention center to be sited appropriately on our site. So you can see that in the diagram. Again, along with the movement of Broadway, we're really starting to take into consideration that pedestrian experience from the new streetcar stop that's been proposed on the boulevard on the corner of Robinson and the Oklahoma Boulevard. So making sure that relationship between that streetcar and the entry to our convention center is adequate and appropriate for a pedestrian walking on the street level. These next 2 slides are kind of important because they really show what the scale of the building that we're dealing with. We've cut some site sections north and south and east and west just to show how the building is really going to fit in with its surroundings. So I'll walk through this slide pretty carefully. On the top, this is a section cut through the site that's looking to the east. And to the left, you can see the Chesapeake Arena. The Chesapeake Arena is approximately 108 feet tall. So as we move to the south, you see the Oklahoma Boulevard, the potential hotel, and then the new 4th Street experience. And then you see our building, the convention center. And right now, the way that the convention center is designed, we're looking at approximately 95 to 100 feet tall. So when we're talking scale, we're talking about a building that's approximately the size of the arena. not quite as tall, but definitely takes up more land than what we're dealing with for the arena. So that's just what we're dealing with as far as the size and look and feel of the building. And then when we look east-west, you can see the park. The park takes up about 2 city blocks, east and west. And then when you look at our convention center site, we're about a block and a half. So as far as acreage and land mass, we're looking at a site that is similarly sized as the adjacent park development. So just as references, this is the type of scale that we're dealing with for the design and construction of this facility. We were tasked with parking, just siting parking in and around our building. So right now, we think that we can get approximately 750 vehicles on the surface area just around the facility. And then there's the potential for a 780-car structured parking garage above the loading dock of the facility. This is something that we're in the ground floor of studying, but we know that there's definitely potential for approximately 1,500 cars just on our immediate convention center site. And that parking would not only be for the convention center, but for the park and the surrounding developments as well. So the relationship to the park, as I said earlier, is extremely important. We've had some great coordination meetings with Hargraves. We've had some coordination meetings with the streetcar team and how we're just really trying to develop this district. So we're starting to call out some of the arena, some of the plazas along Robinson and what we're calling the new Robinson experience. So you see the Chesapeake Arena Plaza, the Park Plaza that now anchors the corner of the Boulevard and Robinson, and then what we're calling the 4th Street Plaza or the Robinson Plaza adjacent to our facility. So really trying to create that dialogue down Robinson of public open space, starting to connect the dots, if you will, with these new developments. How our building connects to the park is extremely important. You can see the black arrows on the diagram, and those are the proposed connections from the convention center over to the park. We have one to the north, just to the north, that's connecting the plazas. We have one to the center of the convention center that's crossing Robinson, and that's extremely important because that's connecting to the park and the food service, the food and beverage, and the food truck and the picnic area that the park is planning. So ideally, when there's a convention full of guests, they have direct access to all those unique program activities that are happening to the park. And then to the south, we have another connection that's geared more towards people parking in the street park, in the surface parking, in the fountain, and then the event lawn to the south of the park development. The event lawn and the ballroom, we like to really call those out because they're two of the most prominent spaces in the two developments. And we think that the ballroom and the event lawn can really have this symbiotic relationship where relationships of events in the ballroom can start to maybe bleed out onto this event lawn and vice versa. So starting to create that dialogue early is really important to us. The views from the convention center out are going to be interesting. The facility is sited so high up that when you're on that upper level, you will have dynamic views to downtown, to Bricktown, over the park, down to Skydance Bridge. But what we're really trying to do is craft views down onto Robinson and onto the program areas in the park. Being able to frame those views is going to be integral to the success of not only the park, but to the building. So if you imagine that's what you want your guest in the convention center to see, is all that exciting activity happening down on street level. I've been here for 3 days now, and it's been 3 unique weather days. So we understand that weather is a big part, and how we mitigate that is going to be quite substantial. So sun, we have a west-facing building, and we know that it will receive a lot of sunlight, not ideal sunlight. So we are conscious of that and trying to craft ways to mitigate the sun exposure to the west to make it a comfortable facility. The southerly winds, I think we all felt the wind yesterday. We're planning some outdoor space on that western facade, so mitigating the wind exposure and making a comfortable experience is obviously important to us. And then potential stormwater overflow. We're in the process of completing our flood study right now and making sure that we're doing all of the adequate procedures to mitigate any kind of water overflow, not only from our site, but from the park site as well. So I'll walk through the building real quick. As far as the program goes, we're hitting our full program right now. We have 200,000 square feet of exhibit hall, 45,000 square feet of flexible meeting space, and 30,000 square feet of ballroom space. So that's we've pretty much maxed out what we can fit on the site right now. So it's pretty cool to see it all fit. As it stands today, the building is designed on 4 levels. We have our ground level, which is approximately 4 feet above grade. We have a meeting room level 1, which is 26 feet above grade. Meeting room level 2, which is 48 feet above grade. And then we have our ballroom level, which is what we're calling the ballroom experience, is approximately 54 feet above grade. On the ground level, that's where our 200,000 square feet of exhibit hall sit. But what we've also done is to kind of create that Robinson experience that we're looking for is we pulled some of the meeting room program down to the ground. We've done that because historically in your convention center design, your meeting room is your most active space. And by pulling some of that meeting room program down to the ground, we're really trying to activate the street level. So instead of seeing a dark building along Robinson, when there's some smaller shows going on, ideally those are going to be the most active spaces. Along with the meeting room being on the ground level, what we've done is we've created this unique northwest entry. We know that this is going to be the civic entry, the front door of the convention center from the streetcar, from the potential hotel, from all the development that's happening downtown. And so we've shown some architectural images, conceptual images here to the right, and that's really the scale and the size and the look and feel of the design that we're looking at here. We know that this corner needs to have some presence and be that architectural statement that we would all expect from a building of this type. Along with that, we have our 4th Street experience. So 4th Street right now is a through street, and what we're planning on doing is making that a convention center specific plaza that then connects the convention center to the adjacent hotel development, with the ability to open up that 200,000 square foot exhibit hall and allow some of the activity to bleed out on the street level. So, we have nice weather here in Oklahoma City, I'd say, 3/4 of the year that allows this kind of activity. So we really want to capture that within the program of this. Obviously, servicing the building is quite important. We've been working with, obviously, our subcommittee to make sure that we're accessing the building and designing it with all the appropriate needs. So I won't spend too much time on it, but just know that the loading dock is going to be now off of Broadway to the east of the facility. Our main goal in placing the loading dock to the east is to keep all of the trucks off of Robinson. We understand that Robinson is going to be the front door and that we need to keep all of those kind of load in and load out scenarios off of Robinson and into Broadway. This is just a quick shot of the loading dock. And so the second level is our first level of meeting rooms, and this is unique for 2 reasons. In typical convention centers, you see kind of long corridors of meeting rooms with nondescript signage and no views to daylight. What we've done here is we put these meeting rooms along the western facade, giving them each their own address to the park. So if you look at the images to the right, each one of those rooms will have some direct exposure to the western facade and views out onto the park and the Oklahoma City experience. So the days of sitting in the windowless meeting room, we think, are coming to an end. Also, to go along with the flexibility of the facility, we can't just, design walls with no room for growth or adaptability. So giving these rooms the ability to expand from 1,800 square feet to 3,600 square feet is only going to make it easier for the operator to sell this facility. We've been tasked with citing a location for the potential connection to the hotel. It's not in our scope, but we need to be conscious of where this is going to happen. So we've highlighted it there because we understand that it needs to be something special. We don't want it just to be a dribble tube across the street. We want it to be something that has presence and that is designed well. So we will be trying to influence that as we move through this design process. So this is our upper level of meeting rooms. It's approximately 48 feet in the air. And we have these 2 10,000 square foot green areas that I have colored here. And we're calling those flexible meeting rooms, junior ballrooms. So the example to the right is our convention center in Anaheim that we have right now. Is under construction, and we were tasked with taking 100,000 square feet of meeting room and subdividing it into 26 smaller meeting rooms. That's a challenge for many reasons, for code, exiting, fire protection, all of those kind of behind-the-scenes activities. But what we would imagine here is the addition of this flexible space on a smaller scale to this facility with the potential of 4 1,800 square foot rooms that could then grow to a 10,000 square foot flexible space. So starting to think about that adaptability that this facility would need to kind of grow and adapt as the future, kind of move through the future here. So the last is the ballroom level. It's quite exciting. I know we're just looking at boxes now, and we'll show development here shortly, but we're trying to get rid of just the ballroom as the black box that sits on top of the convention center. We want to create this ballroom experience, this VIP experience. So if you look at the images to the left, what we're really trying to say is that this ballroom can grow from a 10,000 square or 30,000 square foot ballroom. You can add the 10,000 square foot of pre-function to the west, and then we're also proposing a 6,000 square foot outdoor terrace that overlooks the park. So when you combine this whole level together, you really get a 46,000 square foot unique sellable experience that can supplement all of the other meeting room and program spaces below. And we understand that this is going to require some great thought and some great design, and we think that this ballroom can be that iconic piece of civic architecture that this building really needs to be. And so when you see that image down to the left, that's not what it's going to look like, but something that has that kind of presence. And when visitors come to Oklahoma City, they can point at that space, and it's instantly recognizable, and they know that this is the new Oklahoma City Convention Center. So that's all that we have. We're going to be wrapping up the concept design here in a few weeks, and so we'll then now be starting to tell an architectural story and apply some materials and design to this. And this is just a great exercise for us in making sure that the building works and it fits and that it's in budget. And right now we're right on target with where our budget needs to be, and so we would not want to show you guys anything that we didn't think was possible. So thank you.
Adam, you might remain to see if there are some questions. Kim?
If I may, one of our subcommittee members from the parks yesterday, who wasn't able to attend, did look at this last night, and he had a couple questions, if I may.
Yeah.
Is there any concern about the possible noise factor from the park during large festivals, concerts, or multi-day events, as those are highly sought-after revenue-generating programs for the park?
So that's a good question. That was actually brought up in one of our subcommittee meetings as well. And there's a few things that are working for us because of that. Obviously, the main stage for the park is facing the opposite direction, which is good for us. And then the promenade that is designed in the park is going to be heavily vegetated, which is also great for sound transmission. And then because of the height of most of the outdoor spaces of our facility, most of that sound, it would be hard-pressed to get up to that level because of all the vegetation around the sound generation. And then, our project in Anaheim right now is right across the street from Disneyland. So when you're outside, you can hear kids screaming all day long and music and all the fun stuff that happens in Disneyland. So we've gone through some significant exercises in sound mitigation, and a lot of that has to do with the ratings of the exterior enclosure along the western facade. And so along with what I've already addressed, we will definitely be paying attention to how that sound transmission happens with the materials along those program spaces there.
And then also about during those large events, during setup times, there could be as many as, a dozen to 28 semis that have to frequent down Robinson and the Boulevard to access the entrance to that area, and may require being there for a great part of a day or 2 days during setup. Any inhibitants there?
Well, we saw in this presentation yesterday, we saw the event plans for the park, and from what it looks like, they were only planning on taking a portion of Robinson, which is good. But for us, from an operational perspective, by keeping all of our utility and like load in and load out to the east of Broadway, we don't see a problem with that as far as the convention center functioning. As far as patrons, though, by paying attention to the north and allowing them to enter the building along 4th Street and not having them have to walk down Robinson while that event is happening, we think that is significant enough to allow that to happen. So, I mean, there will be some sacrifices as far as, if there's a large event in the park and, patrons won't have access to the park, but as far as within the convention center, we think that it's fine. Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. You talk about 4th Street experience, you envision that being permanently closed to traffic, or do you see it something like Thunder Alley where it's you traffic during idle times and then closed during big events?
Yeah, so we think that it would be something that would be a show-specific, where it would be open, and then with the ability to bollard it off for specific events.
So traffic would be on it. For
Yeah,
most of the
well, it would need to be exposed for a fire lane, first of all, so it couldn't be completely closed. But again, just allowing that flexibility for when a show would move in, to just allow them to say, hey, you know, you have a 20,000 square foot plaza out there at your disposal to set up outdoor exhibits or something along those lines. But when not in use, traffic would be able to flow through it.
Okay. And then on your level 1 rendering, you have a couple of meeting spaces shown in green there, but there's a lot of other white spaces. Are those service areas, or is that potential retail, or what, you know, what do you envision for those spaces?
So those are all, the white spaces are potential, that's all service area. That's all your restrooms and storage for all the for all the events that are going to be happening within the exhibit hall. And also, when an event loads in, there's significant registration for people. If we have a 20,000 person event, that area will get full quite quickly.
So those aren't
It's not retail.
visitor areas, I guess.
Yeah. You know, there is some thought as we start to program this facility on these kind of unique programs, and whether that's food service or retail. But at this stage, it's just a placeholder right now. We're not exactly sure what that could be, but acknowledging that something could be there. And as we move through schematic design, we'll obviously start to program that and bring it to your guys' attention.
Okay. And then lastly, I heard yesterday at the, I believe it was a Parks Subcommittee meeting, that they had found the original quarry for the stone that was done for the railroad station.
Yep.
And they were planning on using it for their maintenance facility. And I thought, you know, if that might be a trend we do in this whole area, maybe try to use that same stone for a lot of the development, even in the park, and maybe even for some facades or something along the convention center. I thought it might be something to consider.
I mean, absolutely. Like I said, this building needs to be, you know, for some visitors, this might be their only experience of Oklahoma City, just coming from the airport to the convention center. So tying in as many of those natural materials as we can find and that are available is only going to help the experience. But as far as a sustainable aspect as well, any kind of locally sourced materials that we can find will only benefit the project.
Well, I just think in continuity of the whole
Yeah.
district, maybe one way to tie in some stuff down there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just have one final question, if I may. Going back to the event lawn space in the park, which is on the south end, almost across from where the parking area would be, the park also visualized that as being a spillover place that conventioneers who want to have an outdoor experience that maybe you can't fulfill on 4th Street could there. Do you think we've adequately spaced that, or should consideration be made for making that a larger space as well?
Well, I think, you know, if we talked about the park as a menu, I think that you have tons of flexibility in the park. From, you know, without going into too much detail, I think that event space is in the perfect location for a, you know, especially if we're talking, you know, pre and post party stuff, you know, large weddings, they can have the wedding in the park and the reception in the ballroom, those kind of relationships where you're starting to create that dialogue. By all means, I don't think it's inadequate. I think it's perfectly adequate, along with all the other facilities that are planned along Robinson.
Bob?
Just a small question. You had talked about the 3 points of access between the convention center and the park across Robinson. Of course, Robinson, at least right now, if you're westbound on I-40, that's the principal ingress into the city, and I assume there will continue to be traffic there. Again, a small point, any thought to having, in addition to street level access, to having something underground to avoid the traffic moving between the convention center and the park?
To date, no, that hasn't been part of any discussion. It's a good point to bring up that I think we should probably take into consideration with our respective subcommittees and MAPS team, but right now it's all just street level connections.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? David?
Thank you, Tom. Just really more of a comment, especially since this is my last meeting here on this board. Could we go to the next to the last screen that you showed as far as Yes. You know, with all of our public projects, we have 1% dedicated for art, and I would encourage that we consider increasing that, maybe 2%, even if we have to increase the budget for the convention center. Just a suggestion for this committee, since I'll be leaving soon. And I think there might be a desire to look at the outside for the placement of the art, but since the ballroom is considered the living room, and in most living rooms you put your finest piece of art there, I would encourage that we look at using that as the site for the artwork. And the reason why I point this screen out, you know, you could incorporate the history of Oklahoma, dating back to when it was still just, you know, the site for the transfer of the American Indian tribes, all the way through the land run, you know, continued on through the 20th century and to now, and see it develop from a very early stage in the state's history to a more modern, futuristic type view with a back wall or something, and incorporate some of our more famous artists, such as Alan Hauser. I would certainly recommend considering his works to be included in that. But just really focus on the ballroom as the site for the artwork. And this, if any of the MAPS projects deserve special attention from an art perspective, I would say the Convention Center does. Again, it may be the only venue that somebody from out of state comes to see, but even those you know, local citizens who get to go to an event in the ballroom to really showcase that, I think is very appropriate. And when you think about something like this, think in terms of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Do you want them to say, boy, I'm glad those old people, you know, built this as inexpensively as possible? Or do we want them to say, look at the time and effort and the investment that was made back in 2017 or 18, whenever it's constructed, and 60, 80 years from now, it's still a very pleasing place to have an event and very special to the city. So I would just encourage that. You know, it looks great. I think this is going to be a great project, and I would just encourage this committee to really push for special provisions to be made in the area of artwork. And I think the city, if they want to, they'll find funds to support whatever you all suggest from an art standpoint. So I would really just suggest that we give that a lot of attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
That's a great comment. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Well, Adam, and to your whole team, I want to say a special word of thanks. I know it's been a long week you've made this presentation. I've heard it a good number of times, and I just think you're getting better every time.
Thank you.
But I do want to say this. It is extremely important to this advisory board that there is a spirit of cooperation, not only with city staff and with ADG, but with the other consultants that are working on the streetcar and on the park, and your willingness to cooperate with them and to come to those subcommittees and to interact not only with the Convention Center subcommittee, but with the other subcommittees as well, means a lot to us. And it's taking the time to do it and making the effort to do it is something that really we really appreciate, and I don't want you to leave here without knowing that your efforts are appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. David, that brings us, we are not, we have stricken item 5, Councilman Greenwell, at the request of the staff and the subcommittee, and we're going on to item 6. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum number 1 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Expo building signage, rejecting bids and approving revised final plans and specifications to be advertised for bids, project M3-F002C. As it says, this is the signage that was to be added to the Expo building. We received one bid, and that bid had documents that were improperly executed, so we're going to reject the bids and re-advertise the project. This comes with the recommendation from the subcommittee.
Any comment, Bob?
No, just, we do recommend approval and so moved.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we ratify. What are you asking us to do here, David? Ratify the rejection?
Yeah, just recommend the resolution.
Recommend the resolution. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as provided. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The recommendation is approved. That brings us then to item number 7, David.
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving change order number 14 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2 New Expo Building, increase of $43,602.75, project M3-F002. As it says, this is a change order. Routine things that were found during construction. There's some revisions to the conduit and pull boxes, $1,300. There's some site demolition that was requested by the fairground staff, and this is at that Centennial Plaza entry drive. There's just some complicated movements in there for trucks, and this helps deal with that. That's the almost $20,000 there. Floor box concrete detail, $7,334, is a different little detail on hand tooling the joint around that box to try and control cracking better. There was the colored expansion joints. What was spec'd was just a single color, but if you remember seeing the presentations, the block is a reddish and then a blonde color, and it needs to match those colors. Then there's the electric box modification. These are the boxes that were in the columns. There were some issues with the reinforcing, and that had to be adjusted. And then there's a screen wall that up on the rooftop by the mechanical units, it was not allowing the units to be accessed properly, so there were some revisions to that. So all in all, it's $43,602.75. This also comes from unanimous recommendation from the Fairgrounds Subcommittee.
Any questions?
Bob? Approval.
Been moved and seconded that we approve it. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. That moves us to item number 8 on the agenda. David?
Item 8 is recommend resolution ratifying the issuance of and approving addendum numbers 1 and 2 for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2 and awarding contract to W.L. McNatt and Company, base bid only, $10,480,000, project M3-H003. You'll see in your packet the information, the bid tabs were provided in the agenda. This is the award is for the second lowest bidder, and for the reasons that were explained in the attachment to the item, there's an appendix item in your packet, various items. We can go over those if you want, but I will tell you that this comes at the recommendation, unanimous recommendation from the Wellness Subcommittee.
All right. Mike, you want to be heard from the subcommittee?
Right. I think we've got someone to speak. I think perhaps I'd like to hear that first. That's not out of order.
Well, to make sure we're all thinking about this the same way. The recommendation from staff is that we not take the lowest bid, that we take the second lowest bid, and the reasons for that are in the attachments. So feel free to ask any questions you want about that. The company that made the low bid is here and has asked to be heard, and they're represented by Mike Owen of Bixby, Oklahoma, and we are departing from our usual procedure and waiting till last to hear from a citizen so that we can hear what he has to say before this item is voted on. So, Mike, you're recognized now. Come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for moving us up so I can speak at this time. I'd like to address the board and just make a few comments in regard to the agenda item number 8, obviously the recommendation and approval for the MAPS 3 Health and Wellness Center, building number 2. On March the 3rd, as your bid tab summary sheets indicate, the city received 8 bids. Subsequently, later that day, the city and its trust issued that bid summary identifying Atlas as the lowest responsible bidder. I'd further like to make some brief statements about, just so the board is aware, that Atlas is a pre-qualified bidder for public work for the city of Oklahoma City. We've been engaged in public work with the city of Oklahoma City for more than 50 years. Even Monday of this week, we just cut the ribbon with the mayor on the tennis facility for the city at Will Rogers Park. We've got more than 10 years of successfully completed MAPS projects. And I would also like to bring to your attention that the decision by this board to go to the second low bidder is an increase to the taxpayers of $151,000. So I just would kindly ask that those things be really taken into consideration in your decision-making process. Our staff spent a lot of time and effort in the bid process. We look forward to doing work for the city of Oklahoma City, and I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I should have pointed out the $151,000. That is correct. That is the difference between the Atlas bid and the McNatt bid. Also, in order to award this, we will have to take $9,777 from the project contingency fund. That's over $500,000, but that will have to be used to award the contract. So I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Any response you want to make, David, to what Mr. Owen has said before we hear from Mike Dover?
No, sir.
Mike?
Oh, thank you, Tom. Just a couple of thoughts. The subcommittee did not obviously take this issue very lightly, and I think, as most of us will remember in here, the Wellness Center's got such a late start. We were some 2 years behind to begin with before moving on with the first Wellness Center. And I think, quite frankly, it is because of some of the concerns that happened at the fairgrounds that some of us were concerned. We just didn't want to be we wanted to be very, very cautious and not do anything that might delay the second Wellness Center from moving on and being completed in a timely manner that we hoped that would be the case. And at least for me, and I know at least for some others, that was a very, very important consideration as we weighed this. I understand your concerns, but I wanted you to have that information, again, that we were very concerned because of some past over at the fairgrounds. We have to just be very, very careful. We're so far behind in these wellness centers. The public are awaiting these wellness centers. I get calls from time to time. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? I just hope that you'll at least understand from where we sat and discussed this issue that that was a major concern.
Been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Michael?
Tom, I'd like to hear from legal staff as to what the, regulations and rules are about accepting bids.
Yes. Amanda, you going to...
The Oklahoma Competitive Bidding Act requires that any public construction contract over $50,000 be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. The Oklahoma City Municipal Code requires that any public construction contract over $50,000 be awarded to the lowest and best bidder. We believe that in this situation, Attachment A provides the reasons why Atlas is not the lowest responsible bidder, as well as the lowest best bidder. The state law does allow for a municipality or public entity to award a public construction contract to a second lowest bidder, assuming that that bidder is also responsible and the best bidder. And in this situation, Attachment A would be that proof and public statement as to why Atlas is not a responsible and lowest best bidder. And so assuming that those are reasons that this board is recommending and that City Council adopts those reasons, it would be within compliance with state law and our Oklahoma City Municipal Code.
In your view, from reviewing the Attachment A, do those constitute sufficient reasons for us making the decision that's been recommended to us?
The list is compiled by staff, and staff is the best person to speak to whether or not they feel that meets the level of responsible and not indicating as the best. From a legal perspective, they are sufficient to meet the legal standard.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? David, you want to be heard on this?
No, sir. I'm good.
All right. Well, the motion has been made and seconded. Hearing nothing further, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Thank you. Item 9.
Item 9 is a presentation on the MAPS 3 Park Project 1, Public Utility Relocation Street and Alley Removal, Project M3-P00/WC-0811/SC-0908. Chris Savage is here today. This is the work that's going on for the park. It is park work. It doesn't look like park work because it's utilities and things and lots of piles of dirt and things like that, but I just wanted him to give you a quick update so we'll know what's going on. So I'd like to give it to Chris.
Welcome, Chris.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good morning. Good to see everyone again. As David mentioned, this is will be a brief update of the utilities project for the downtown park. Just as a brief recap, the scope of the project is to relocate the utilities out of and around the park and to take out the streets and all the other surface improvements and make way for the fun stuff. I would say that we're probably about 30%, a little bit more than a third of the way there in terms of schedule. We're about 25% complete with of construction tasks, and while that doesn't sound like it matches up, that's because we start with all of the things that take a really long time to build first, and then we finish up with all the things that go really quick at the end. So that's where we're at. It's been a busy 4 months. We started in December of last year. We started right, as this image shows you, we started on 7th Street, right in front of Union Station. We crossed Robinson Avenue with a bore of some utilities. So this is Robinson Avenue that you see there in 7th Street. That's looking to the east. This is what we crossed Robinson Street with. While it's not as exciting as the ballroom experience, I'll admit, that is a 7.5-foot diameter pipe. The walls on that are 9 inches thick. And the larger pipe you see there is 11 feet in diameter. So that gives you a sense of the scale of the work going on out there and what you're spending your millions on. At this point, all of our work's been pretty much contained within the park and around the back side of the park, so kind of on Hudson Avenue. We've also been working on 3rd Street recently and just made our way to Robinson. And this is what you'll see at Robinson and 3rd Street, and will for the next several months as we move forward. Our work is complete on 7th Street. The yellow line, or the green line, I should say, represents the storm sewer. That's about 1,500 feet of large diameter storm sewer, as well as the telecommunications duct bank, which is highlighted in orange. That work's complete. Along Hudson Avenue and 3rd Street, we have completed in green storm sewer almost to Harvey Avenue. We've completed a 30-inch water line, which is highlighted in blue, over to 3rd and Robinson. And upcoming activity for the next several months, the dash lines in blue represent 30-inch water line. We'll take that all the way down Robinson to 7th Street. And then we also have some additional storm sewer that we'll be doing there as well. So Robinson's going to be a busy place for the next several months. Upcoming schedule through April, we'll continue to work on a 30-inch water line and the storm sewer. In May, we'll continue the same and start putting some of the paving back in Robinson Avenue. And then in June, we'll start abandoning utilities, and in the summer, we'll start taking out streets, alleyways, sidewalks within the park itself. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
It's looking good, Chris, and I know you can't always appreciate these things because they're all underground, but it's the peace of mind that we'll have when they're finished. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Certainly.
All right, that brings us to item 10. David?
Item 10 is recommend approval of draft final plans and specifications for MAPS 3 Upper Downtown Public Park Engineering Services, Hudson Avenue Street Improvements, Project 2, Project M3-P0048/PC-0479/WC-0895. If you recall, you approved a contract with Johnson Associates and Chris is the engineer on that project, and it was to coordinate the work on Hudson Avenue between Public Works and the park and the streetcar. And they've done a great job of that. We have plans that are, I would say, 95% complete at the time that we did the agenda. We still needed a response from the various entities within the city that make comments and check the plans. We've since received those back. They, as we expected, were minimal. That's why we had on here draft final plans. But what we'd like to do is get those plans approved so that as soon as we can get the comments changed, we can get those to City Council and get it advertised. We do have a timeline where we need to award a contract by June 1st?
I think it's July 1st.
July 1st, because of the bond funds. So that's why we're in a bit of a haste here to get this done. So Chris has a quick presentation on the highlights of that project.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. The Hudson project will extend from the new Oklahoma City Boulevard all the way south to I-40. You can see that's on the west side of the park and will be on the east side of the streetcar maintenance facility. We're going to totally remove Hudson Avenue and rebuild a new street, and we'll build that in this typical block configuration. North is to the right in this image, so the park is at the bottom of the image, and adjacent to the park, we're going to build 90-degree parking. On the west side of Hudson, we'll build parallel parking, and we'll have two travel lanes southbound, one travel lane northbound. In the middle lane will be a bidirectional turn lane that will also be utilized by the streetcar. Now, that streetcar lane will take the cars from the maintenance facility all the way up Hudson to the mainline track at Reno and Hudson, where we'll get on to the revenue track. And in the evenings, then they'll come south on Hudson back to the maintenance facility. This will be a typical paving section. What we're building is a concrete street similar to what Project 180 is building all throughout downtown. So that's what our final product will be. We are not building any of the streetcar-related paving items. And so what we'll do is in the very center of the section here, there's a little dark strip, and that'll be a temporary asphalt lane, which will let us drive on that in that lane until the streetcar contractor shows up. And at that time, the streetcar contractor will only have to just basically scoop out and remove that asphalt, put in the track slab and the rails, and be able to really plug and play with the streetcar. Our construction estimate at this time is about $2.97 million. Of that, as David mentioned, Public Works is contributing a substantial amount, which is $1.8 million. The rest of the budget will be shared evenly between the streetcar and parks projects, approximately $542,000 each. Anticipated schedule, as David mentioned, we're needing to award the contract by July 1st. So everything is predicated on making sure we hit that deadline. We anticipate advertising in April, awarding a contract in May. We'll begin construction in June, so we're actually beating our deadline there. And then we'll complete construction in March of next year. Interestingly, when you look at the time frame for the streetcar project, this works out perfectly. They'll be starting the maintenance facility, I believe, in the fall of this year. And then in the fall of this year, the rail starts to show up. And then a little bit after this project is complete, the main line contract will come online, and they'll begin doing utility removals and relocations and start building the track. So everything's progressing nicely and is dovetailing with the other projects very well, so we're very happy with that.
Questions?
With that, any questions?
This came yesterday with a unanimous recommendation of the Park Subcommittee. And again, I did get 2 other questions on this last night, if I may indulge you. If there is a private development that happens on the west side of Hudson prior to this construction beginning, would that developer then be held to the standard to develop that, what you show here, in conjunction, so that it matches what we have approved?
Well, no, they wouldn't. This project will be built as is, regardless of whether there is development or is not.
Okay.
I think what would happen, though, is if they came to the city with a concept and then even went to building permit, then I know that the city intends to require development behind the curb and to the right-of-way or to the buildings of the Project 180 standard. So you'll see pavered sidewalks, landscaping, irrigation, amenities that matches the Project 180 standard, and the developer would be required to do that.
Okay.
In terms of closing alleys and a lot of that kind of stuff, which is typical with private development, that would be up to the developer to pursue. And any modifications that would be required of that, depending on the timing, we might be able to work that in. If it wouldn't, then the developer would be required to construct those.
Okay. And then the second question was, on the west side of the street, would buses be able to utilize that? If, say, when the park is construction, that maybe a school is bringing a whole group of children or a special interest group, would that be able to be bus parking for just unloading and reloading?
In terms of simple logistics, those sizes are definitely large enough to accommodate buses, so that would just be a special permit by event.
Zane?
At the streetcar meeting last night, subcommittee meeting last night, we did not have a quorum. However, those members that were present agreed with the streetcars part contributing to this road construction. And a question was asked about the road bed under the asphalt, whether or not it was taking into consideration construction in depth to accommodate the tracks when they're laid in the future. And we were satisfied that the answer was correct, was positive. So while we didn't have a quorum, we do unanimously agreed that we
Okay. Project. Michael?
Chris, you mentioned bi-directional turn lanes in that middle lane there, but there are really no turns to the east into the park anywhere, is there?
That's correct. However, there are turns into that parking, and so what you would do is if you're southbound on Hudson, you wanted to park adjacent to the park, you'd move over into the turn lane, turn across the northbound traffic and park in those stalls.
I see. Okay.
Right. But there is no street access through the park. You're correct.
Further questions?
I move for approval.
Been moved. Is there a second? Been moved and a second that we approve this. So there will be $542,000 from the MAPS 3 streetcar budget and $542,000 from the park MAPS 3 budget on this project, and the rest will be paid by Public Works. Is that?
That's correct.
All right. So we're all clear? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. That brings us then to item, and thank you, Chris. That brings us to item 11. David, is there any new business that you have?
We don't have any, sir.
Any member have new business they want considered today? That brings us then to item number 12, the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. We've heard from many of the subcommittees. Anything that any advisory board member wants to bring to our attention today? You've got a big date coming up, don't you, Dee?
28th, I believe.
28th.
Yeah, we have.
You're going to talk about that.
I can.
Go ahead. I'm just.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
The opening of the Whitewater facility
Okay.
will be April 28th.
Wow. Okay.
It's coming along quite well.
All right. Any other subcommittee members, Zane?
I would just like to say that the streetcar subcommittee is very pleased that the city council approved the proceeding with the purchase of streetcars. So we'll enter into a contract in that in the next couple of months, and within a year we should start seeing streetcars show up.
All right. Bob?
Just a quick update on the State Fairgrounds. We heard last time, and then sort of a sub-issue in the discussion today, that some of the issues with the construction out there, the city is monitoring it very closely, as is the committee. They're moving along. Issues remain, especially continuing the paint remediation on the steel beams we've talked about before, and continuing issues on the subgrade, the subflooring before they pour the slab of this huge convention, or not convention center, but expo space. And don't have a resolution of those problems yet, but the city is working on them and moving ahead. We are experiencing some delays as a result of that, but we will get there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kim?
I would just like to report that the parks had their largest meeting yesterday as far as time. We actually interrupted the transit a little bit, so thank you for a few minutes of your time as well. But I wanted to thank all of our consultants that did a great job yesterday. We had lots of presentations, including updates from Hargraves on both the upper park and on the lower park. We have a little bit of homework that the subcommittee members are doing just to make sure that all our checklists of the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and we're moving together on schedule and are very pleased to report that.
Well, I'll just mention for the Convention Center Subcommittee that it's a breath of fresh air to be looking at these design concepts and to be working on and to have our site, and David will tell you more about it perhaps in his report about how we're doing on the acquisition of land, but that seems to be going well. It's going well enough that we all feel comfortable pushing forward with the design that you saw today, and it's pretty exciting for us after several months of trying to relocate. So these are good days for the Convention Center Subcommittee as well. Anybody else? All right. David, you gave us 5 informational items. Are there any of those that we need to pay special attention?
Well, I'd like to point out item E. There is a typo on the agenda that amounts, the $141,883 should be $52,697. It's correct on the memo, but there was a typo on this agenda. But this just goes on to show you the property and things that we're doing between the Convention Center and the park.
Are there any of those items on the informational items that anyone would like to ask a question or comment about? All right then. David, any additional items on your update, item 14?
Well, I would just again mention that the Whitewater facility is nearing completion down in construction, has been working very hard, and luckily we've had some great weather this year. Of course, we could use some rain, I'm sure, but the Whitewater is coming together quite well. If you go by there, you notice the water's been put in, and within the next few days, the pumps will be turned on and tested. So we're getting to that point. And as I mentioned, the 28th of April will be the ribbon cutting, and then after that, the road to Rio. And then after that, all the citizens will be welcome to enjoy the new Whitewater facility. Senior Wellness, the Senior Wellness Center number 1, construction is underway and is going well. And as you know, the design is complete, and we talked about the bid on Center number 2. The RFP for the operator on Wellness Center number 3 is out. We went through that last month. Trails and Sidewalks has a lot going on. The Phase 2 trails, which is the I-44 corridor trails, is in design and acquiring right-of-way, and we hope to have that completed here soon so we can begin construction on part of that. And then Phase 3, the Draper Trail, is in design. We have Phase 2 sidewalks that are in construction and nearing completion. We have Phase 3 sidewalks, projects 1 and 2 are acquiring right-of-way, and Phase 4 sidewalks are in design. So there's a lot going on with trails and sidewalks, and we saw the presentation on the convention center today. It's coming along nicely, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman. Fairgrounds, Mr. Nealon mentioned the Expo building is under construction. Some challenges there, but we're working diligently to take care of that. The park, design of the upper park continues, and as Ms. Lowe said, there was a good, very long meeting this month, but it was all with good information, especially with the design of the upper park, and then the preliminary design on the lower park is underway, and as you saw, the utility relocations are underway. Mr. Boatwright mentioned that the streetcars have been ordered, and that is a great milestone that we have with the streetcar. The track has been ordered, and the mainline construction maintenance facility are in design and nearing completion.
Wow, a lot going on. All right, that brings us to item 15. I want to begin the comments by the board by saying thank you to Councilman Greenwell. David, it's been a pleasure to have you as a colleague on this board for this past year, and the way that the council by ordinance designed this process for citizen input. An important factor of that was having a line of communication with the city council, and having you here has been a real pleasure for us this year, and we really thank you for your input and your dedication to coming to our meetings, and would invite any comment that you have.
Just that I am continually impressed by all the efforts of all the members, the chairs, as well as the individual members of all the committees, and each month you demonstrate that with these reports as to all the activity that is occurring, and each one of you have done a tremendous job in protecting the confidence and the faith of the citizens in that this is a very open and transparent process, and I commend you and thank you for all of your efforts. Thank you.
David?
One other thing I forgot to mention is that we will have tours on March 31st. We're going to do a tour of the Whitewater facility at 9 a.m., and then at 2 p.m. we'll have a fairgrounds tour. So that's March 31st. And the MAPS office will be sending out the notices if you haven't already seen them.
Now, is that considered to be,
it will be posted as meetings.
It'll be posted as meetings, so we don't have a problem. If all of us come, it's okay.
Absolutely. Not only the subcommittee, but the advisory board, we won't be conducting business other than to see the facility.
Well, I think you'll be impressed both places. Looking forward to having that tour that day. Any other comments by board members? Staff? Any comments? Are there citizens here that would like to be heard by the Citizens Advisory Board today? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thank you.